So if profit is the highest goal in your existential value system, then the way you get to the highest profit margin is by making people scared and afraid, because the biggest things that lead to whether or not somebody will make a purchase is fear of loss, sense of urgency, or a sense of scarcity. Hey everybody, I'm Drew.
I'm Brian.
And we are the Men Who Stare at Cups, live from Phoenix Ridge
Studios.
Indeed, indeed. Today we are discussing why the news... we were discussing why, like, Brian was talking about trying to not look at the news too much because it gets his blood pressure going. And then I was telling him that essentially I have a hard time even, like, caring about the news.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I was saying was I'm trying to not just ignore it entirely, but like have a more cynical or absurdist view on it. So I can like pay attention, but not get emotionally drawn into it.
Like looking for detachment mechanisms?
Yeah, exactly. But not like complete detachment, because generally I care about things and I want to know what's going on, and especially when it comes to people talking about supply chains breaking down and all that crap. So it's worth keeping your thumb on the pulse, right? But also there's this carrot on a string and it's like bleeding you emotionally, and this is you know, it's a big problem because these feeds are just kind of constantly smacking you with this stuff, and it's just becoming more and more sort of like dystopic to me, where it's like, am I reading a tabloid? I mean, what is this? Yeah. And it's that part of it's like frustrating. Sure. It's like, do people really buy all of this? I
don't think people, it's not that everybody's buying all of it. It's just that if you're going for view count and you're looking for, you know, serving as many ads as you can, and you're looking for, you know, that sort of thing. So if you're in the news business, the problem is that if you saw a news article that said everything is fine in the supply chain, the lab leak theory was correct, everybody can go about as you were, we're going to have a recession for a couple of years, but hey, hunker down, be smart, be safe, and when you're done executing your plan for the last 2 years to get through the recession, it's going to be fantastic. And we're going to have all these AI bits that are going to go around. They're going to take care of a lot of things for you. 4 years, you're going to have some basic incomes. You won't have to work anymore, and you can just create sufferless art. If that was what, you wouldn't even click on it. You wouldn't even click on it.
Well, you can click on Klaus Schwab. He's more or less saying that.
Well, he is saying, but he's saying that in a way that doesn't give you any choice.
Yeah, and it almost seems like a put on. It's like he must be self-aware. He must be a very intelligent guy. So when he puts on those Sith Lord robes and speaks the way he does so candidly, like, listen, nobody elected me and I have a plan for the future. It's like, is he trolling? Like, do these people really even have power?
The self-awareness extends only so far as he thinks that you're an idiot and he's a genius. There's no self-awareness in as far as your opinion might be valid. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
So when you are perceived as fodder, when you are perceived as well, put it this way, no, more better, or more accurately speaking, when you're perceived as nothing but a fodder data point, all you become is a mechanism for producing or extracting the highest profit out of a particular thing.
Okay, so you think that's where he's at. He's so kind of like detached from humanity because he sees it as an engineering problem.
He's not detached from humanity. He just realizes that he's one of the few smart people left on the globe, and everybody else is just a wandering, you know, idiot. You know, Diogenes had a mental problem. He wasn't like a healthy individual that wanted to connect with nature. He was somebody that had serious ambition issues. He was somebody that clearly didn't have any sort of plans. And so, you know, better for him to have plans to tell you what to do, because at the end of the day, you're just a data point.
No, why did you bring the old Diogenes the Cynic?
Well, because he didn't own anything. He didn't really want to own anything.
That's
he had his little shop, and he was perfectly happy just living on a hillside somewhere.
Of course. If you don't know Diogenes, he was the Greek philosopher that like lived in a bathtub downtown.
Yeah.
That whole thing. Look into that.
And what Klaus Schwab is going to say is, man, you are lacking.
He is. Yeah.
You can't be that happy. You clearly have a mental disorder. And so clearly, if the world was full of people that were happy with just what they wanted, you can't be happy with what you want. You can only be happy if you have everything that we tell you have to have. So that's the issue with the news cycles that make money from pushing out negative news. Now, of course, I'm going to beat a bit of a dead horse here, but if you've decided that the biggest problem to solve, and if you're a for-profit shareholder corporation, so if profit is the highest goal in your existential value system, then the way you get to the highest profit margin is by making people scared and afraid, because the biggest things that lead to whether or not somebody will make a purchase is fear of loss, sense of urgency, or a sense of scarcity, right? So you make everything scarce, you make everything urgent, and you make it so you're in threat at all times.
Yeah.
If that's the case, you will not save for tomorrow. You will not have a plan for tomorrow because you are so fearful and urgently acting because of all the scarcity in the world.
Right. So when they hit us with like, hey, supply chains, and there's a lot of people that follow this stuff, they have some pretty good advice. They're like, well, maybe get to know your local farmers and ranchers. And that's a freaking great idea. That's a very proactive, kind of healthy way to plan for the future. I mean, why wouldn't you do that anyway? Not a bad idea. But then there's people, I think, that are doom scrolling, doom gazing, whatever you want to call it. And they're really, really fixated on this. And it might actually be inhibiting them from making good plans and good decisions because they're in that reactive state of fear. So they're almost kind of doing what they want you to do, which is to chase the carrot, like, emotionally.
Oh, the last thing that the technocrats want you to do is to make a plan for your life, have friends outside of that plan, and go live your life. Because they're not involved in any of those decision making.
Right, then you don't need them.
You don't need them. And you don't need them anyways. They've forced you to need them. So a funny thing about being forced to need something, right? No, so you are not evolutionarily hardwired to want to have your phone.
Sure.
Or to want to be connected to the internet.
Yeah, there's nothing like that in the past.
After 3 days of backpacking and being without your phone, you're not going to believe this. You're going to forget you ever had one.
That sounds great.
In 3 days, it will literally fully reset. You'll forget you had one. And then when you open up your phone, it literally is like mainlining some sort of horrible dopamine antagonist.
Wow. Yeah.
It is crazy. It's truly crazy. So I guess one of the main topic then of today to go back to is, I don't want to say like corporate late stage capitalism, but once again, going back to the late stage capitalist idea that if profit is the primary focus, all profit is generally short-term based, and any product that exists to maximize profits eventually will cannibalize itself.
Right, because what they're actually going to produce isn't really for any human. It's like
it's for data points.
It's an abstraction. It's like nobody wanted that.
Correct.
Like, I don't know if you've caught up with South Park, but they did this 2-part series called The Streaming Wars, and they were saying pretty much everything you have been saying about the streaming services. Like, okay, this is just hyper capitalism reaching this like absurd apex, and then now everything's freaking garbage, and we were actually better off with the old cable style. And it's like it came full circle back around to cable, except shittier.
Yeah. All right. So we'll let's see. I'm trying to think of a fun way to take this. All right. So it is my belief that Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, where he wrote a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I read that.
It is my belief that that book single-handedly caused the 2008 financial crisis.
You think so?
Yeah, I'll explain it to you. Watch this.
Should that be our headline? Maybe you'll watch it.
Oh, it could be. Yeah, because I'm not going to steel man Robert Kiyosaki. I'm actually going to explain, and then I will explain after that, then I will explain why Costco created the sickness, the deep, deep sickness that we have in the West.
Ah, I'm excited for this.
All right, fine. Okay, so Rich Dad, Poor Dad comes out in, I think it's like the late 90s.
Yeah,
right
around that era. I read it when I was in college. That was like 2005 or 2006.
Yeah, I don't have my phone anywhere with me. But anyways, okay, so Rich Dad, Poor Dad comes out in the late 90s, okay? What he explains in that is you have your house, you take the equity out of your house to go and buy a rental.
Right.
You purchase the rental goes up in equity, and so you're getting positive cash flow from renting it out, plus you're making the equity from owning the house. Then you take the equity out of that house along with your newfound cash flow, and you go buy another property, okay? So what you wind up with is each person in America, their goal became in the early 2000s to own 10 houses so they could retire on the rental from 10 income properties.
Okay.
This became like a very standard goal.
Sure. Yeah.
So say you got 350 million people, of those people, you've got, say, 40 million who've bought into this problem. Okay. So you have 40 million people who all want to own 10 houses, which would house, if they were all successful. Now, granted, here you go. Once you figure out the system to get to 10, you're going to try to get to 50. So that's never mind that ridiculous part of human nature that once you get to 10, you don't want to get to 50. Never mind that. So you get to 10. Everybody gets to 10. You now have 400 million homes for a country of 350 million people, if everybody was successful. So Robert Kiyosaki basically lays out this plan, and so that everybody's executing, and then banks are like, well, yeah, the home values are going way up and up because everybody's trying to buy 10 homes. Oh. And then you have these Bill Clinton adjustable rate mortgages, which allow you to buy a home on interest only for the first 5 years, meaning that you're renting out a property. I'm going to buy a $500,000 house. I'm going to make payments of $800 a month while I'm charging you $2,000 a month for rent. So I'm profiting $1,200 a month. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the argument became, well, how, if the $500,000 house goes up by 7% per year over the course of 5 years, how much equity will you have in the home? Right. So you take 35,000 times 5, which is 150 grand. Okay. Because the house will be worth 635,000 in 5 years. Mm-hmm. So now the banks are like, well, yeah. So then when the big giant balloon payment comes due, you're going to have $135,000 in equity. You can just make the balloon payment and by then the rents will have gone up. You'll be able to make these mortgages. Everything's going to be fine.
That was literally my crypto strategy.
Yeah, that was okay. So just to be clear, this is everybody's strategy all of the time for everything.
Yeah, it's stupid.
All right. So that single-handedly causes the 2008 financial crisis because every single human being was suddenly allowed to participate in real estate where they couldn't. Now in the crypto land, because of Coinbase, everybody could suddenly participate in crypto where they couldn't. Mm-hmm. All right. So how did Costco wind up ruining America?
Ooh.
Okay. It comes down to data points. Now, in order to purchase something at Costco, first of all, you have to have membership for Costco. Everybody knows that. That's fine. That didn't kill America.
Okay.
Okay. Memberships
are okay. All right.
Yeah. Memberships do not trump democracy. I'm pretty sure that's the case. What does trump democracy is data.
Okay.
And Trump totally proved that by winning the 2016 election. If you didn't watch the Netflix video on how Trump won, the 2016 election, you have to watch it. I think it's the single best video on internet marketing I have ever seen in my entire life.
Okay.
It's more important than the social dilemma or anything else. It's amazing because what he realized was he had to win like 40 counties. In the whole nation, he had to swing 40 counties. And he would make up they would pick a demographic, and to win that county, you would have to swing one demographic within the county because they were that slim. So if you've got 5,000 data points like Cambridge Analytics had, Cambridge
so you
Analytics,
can kind of like create an avatar.
You would literally create a group. Moms who love soccer and guns but hate abortion group. And you would literally hit that, and then you would slam Facebook in that one county for that one group and then say vote for Trump.
Wow.
And so he created all these fake social organization things and swung one group in all the 50 counties and won the election. It was literally that up for grabs.
Wow.
All right. So what's Costco got to do with this?
What does Costco have to do with this?
So you get a membership to Costco, which does not destroy democracy,
No.
but it does commit you to buying from Costco.
Does.
Now, when you go to buy from Costco,
Like Amazon Prime.
Correct. What can you not buy at Costco?
A house.
No, they do mortgages.
Oh, really? I thought I was being funny.
No, I know you were, but they do everything. They do vacations, they do everything.
Really?
Travel agency, the whole thing.
I had no idea.
All right there in your Costco membership. You should reach. Oh, you don't have a Costco membership.
I don't.
Well, bless your heart. So when you go to buy spaghetti sauce at Costco, you have to buy.
I'm a bachelor. I don't need 4,000 potatoes.
You have to buy 2 jars of spaghetti sauce. You cannot buy 1. So when you go to Costco, you've bought 2 bags of 56 count flour tortillas. You've bought 2 jars of spaghetti sauce. You've bought 2 of everything. But you only needed 1, but you bought 2 because it was like 50% less to buy the 2.
This is why I don't go to Costco.
Great.
If I had like 5 children that were all dudes, then yes, I would.
Yeah, you would.
And I'd have a freezer full of
But it's really not, but it's about what Costco proved, which is that you can get people to buy 2 instead of 1.
Mm-hmm.
If you make the deal good enough.
It's a good deal, but you don't freaking need it.
No, but if everybody buys 2 all the time, then all corporations are incentivized to never sell you 1. They're always incentivized to sell you 2. Also, because profit's the highest value, they're not incentivized to just sell you 2. They're incentivized to sell you 2 of the crappiest thing to make the highest profit.
Yeah.
Okay? So now everybody in America is comfortable now when you go to the gas station to buy 3 rock stars for $5, right?
Right. You were talking about this recently. You were saying that one of the big problems was when gas stations started focusing on, or basically reporting their success and their profits through how many hot dogs they sold.
Correct. AM, PM. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they realized that they were making way more money. In California, they realized they were making more money selling hot dogs than they were selling gas because of all the taxes.
Mm.
Okay. So if everybody is now comfortable buying two spaghetti cans, now the spaghetti manufacturer has to buy double the amount. Because, hey, everybody's always buying 2 cans of spaghetti. Well, eventually, it all catches up where all of the supply chain, and this is what I read recently, basically, all supply chains have tripled the amount that they need inbound. Not even here yet. Contracts signed inbound because everybody bought 2 of everything the entire time during the pandemic. Everybody thought everything was going to go out of stock. Like, we were fine for toilet paper, and then I saw a thing on Drudge Report that says, Hawaii grocery store sells out of toilet paper. The next day, there was no toilet paper in America. When Drudge Report put something on there that says, like Smith & Wesson have no more guns available, this is the last shipment, every Smith & Wesson will go up by 10x.
Yes.
Okay, so every time the Drudge Report comments on a supply chain issue, it creates a false sense of urgency, and then everybody has to go and buy it.
And that sort of manifests, that becomes true in a sense. It's almost like sorcery. It's like you speak it into reality.
If I told you, Brian, that little Mexican beverage you like a lot,
Topo Chico.
Okay, they just went out of business.
What?
Now it's $35 for a case of that stuff at Costco. I know because I almost bought you one.
They're really expensive.
They're really expensive.
They
I
did
was
not
like, I
used to
love
be-
you, but in terms of defining our relationship in the last episode, I drew the line at a $35 box of Topo Chico.
That's okay. I'm not offended by this.
I appreciate it.
I mean, I haven't been buying them either. When I lived in Austin, they did not cost that much.
Yeah.
Well, that's closer to Mexico, too. So, I mean, that's probably why. But I see them
You're
up
right.
here,
They
and I'm
couldn't
like-
open a manufacturing facility in the state of Colorado. That'd be impossible.
Well, right. And allegedly, it does actually come from a spring in Mexico. It's like real mineral water.
All right, great. But if I tell you that they're going to go out of business, you will magically go and find $200 to go and buy 8 cases of it because it's the end.
That makes sense. Yeah, why not? Or like when the band Fish was really notorious for being like, this is our final show. And they just kept having their final show like every 2 years. And then they'd sell out for like the whole weekend. And they just kept doing it. And I was like,
Haven't the Eagles like done that a bunch of times?
Probably. I'm sure Fish is not the only one. I just remember they're particularly
that sounds like an actual game plan. That doesn't sound like a one-off, right? So, okay. So Costco gets everybody comfortable with buying 2. Just like Rich Dad Poor Dad made everybody think that they wanted 2. And everybody has this obsession with wanting 2. And then you get to the funny part of the existentialist thing where we talk a lot about how people, they want to sell you a liminal space. Like your own movie theater.
Okay. Yeah.
Your own pool.
Yes.
Your own church. If you buy a church, does that mean you own a church, right? They're trying to sell you all the liminal space now. And so at the end of the day, everybody has 2 of everything and everybody feels gross.
They have 2 of everything. They own the liminality. And I think we were talking about this maybe on the last episode or the one before that. But we always love to muse about the good old days of Blockbuster and arcades because those were indeed these magical spaces where you would go and it was communal, it was interesting, there's all this chaos, all this stuff that's like out of your bounds, and as soon as you take it all home with you.
Yeah.
Even just the act of going to the Blockbuster and walking around and going, I hope they have the new Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah, and if you were dating or somebody...
Maybe they don't, but you're walking around, you're bumping into people, it's a space.
Going to Blockbuster with your girlfriend or with your wife, that was half of the date.
Half the date. All right.
The other half of the date was theoretically watching it. You know what I mean? Watching one of the 8 movies you got.
Yeah. I remember just having the big stack.
Yeah, big giant stack.
Put them down on the coffee table.
Yeah.
My weekend's going to kick ass.
The issue with late stage capitalism, really, and which goes back to what we were saying back in the kitchen that we're going to get to here, which is that, I mean, socialism really is the best. And I'm going to throw a caveat out there. But the problem with late stage capitalism is that it makes entertainment, fear, and convenience, like those are the hallmarks of everything that is sold. You're either buying it because you're afraid not to have it, the urgency thing, or loss of status. You're buying it because you want to be entertained, or it's just so much more convenient.
There really is a distinction for me between, and I know they're more or less the same thing, but the free market and capitalism, if you will. Because one is actual freedom, like you get to make decisions and this is a good thing. The other is a mentality where people eventually become abstractions and not people, and people's value systems start to get skewed and muddled and screwed up. So if you could have the more socialist mentality where you're like, hey, it's not all about maximizing profits.
What if you considered that your decisions that you made actually impacted your neighbor?
That's not a bad idea.
Like if you bought 2 cans of spaghetti, maybe your neighbor wouldn't have a can of spaghetti. And they're certainly not going to come over to your house and knock on your door and ask you for it.
Oh.
When I say capitalism, what I primarily mean is the Milton Friedman idea of shareholder value above all things. Mm-hmm. So when a company goes public, It's whatever it says its mission statement or vision statement or whatever is legally.
Yeah, obliged to.
It's legally secondary to the shareholder. Like a shareholder can sue you for not putting them first.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say capitalism, what I think I'm really discussing are the larger, broader organizations that exist to serve the shareholders and push that out into the world.
Okay.
All right. So I had this conversation with this Mormon guy the other day. And I was discussing why I love Mormonism.
Okay.
Deeply. Which is that they're very tribal. They're very connected. I like the strong gender roles because they're very empowered. I really like that. I like the spirituality. I like the value system. Okay. But I told the guy, I said, the problem I have with Mormonism is the apostasy clause.
Yeah, sure.
Right? That if I leave the church, you're never allowed to speak to me again. And if you do, you're going to burn in hell too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got this, but then he explains it to me and he says, and it was the first time a Mormon has ever explained to me the apostasy clause in a way that I was like, oh, I actually appreciate that. He's like, look, I'm divorced. Are you divorced? I said, I am divorced. I was surprised that he was divorced because he was a Mormon. And I said, well, yeah, I've had divorce. And he's like, okay, how much time do you really want to spend with your ex? And I was like, yeah, not that much. And he's like, well, that's because when you get a divorce and you violate your covenant, right? It's a much more severe thing than breaking up with somebody for whom, like if you and I had a falling out, it would hurt. It would be a falling out. It'd be like it would hurt worse than like your average person. When a band member falls out of covenant with the band, it hurts a lot more. And that's like less than covenant. All right. So, and I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense.
No, I get you.
And
yeah,
then,
because that occurs and there's a ripple effect and it affects the people around you.
Yeah. We're going to get to late stage capitalism. I'm going to bring it right back in about 30 seconds. The issue is when your children are born into it, if your children don't have a choice to join or to leave the church, your children do not get choices. They do not have a decision to choose to be amongst your tribe. And I don't care if people want to call it a cult or not. That's a moot point. The point is your children don't have a choice to be a part. And in theory, you could say, well, the children, they might answer and say, well, the children do have a choice. But what I'm going to say is whenever a child leaves the Mormon faith, they lose their parents, they lose their families, they lose everything.
Right.
Okay. So I think that late stage capitalism, i.e. late stage stock market capitalism that focuses on fear, entertainment, and convenience is the worst possible. Feck. I think that it is the worst fecking thing. Socialism, though, is perfect, provided everybody who's in the socialist cult volunteers to be there.
That's the conclusion I came to back when I first discovered the whole political compass thing early on when I was in college and I was reading Ayn Rand. And
what is the political compass?
And Noam Chomsky.
I don't know the political compass.
Oh, it's an X-Y axis.
Okay.
Right? And the Y axis is, up here you have authoritarian.
Okay.
More government. Down here you have
anarchy.
Libertarian anarchy. And then the X-axis is over here you have free market. And then over here you have
state
control mark, okay. Right? And then you take a little test and you figure out, where you are. But the most interesting quadrant on that whole thing is the bottom left one. Okay? Because if you think of it like this, you have the top right, that would be like, your Republican, free markets, like war hawks, major nationalism, power to the state in certain ways, like very much so. And then on the other side of that, you'd have Democrats, right? Same idea, but like, more socialist elements and whatnot. The bottom right, then you have Milton Friedman, Ayn Rand, like hyper-libertarian land. And then the bottom left, you have this sort of contradiction where it's like, okay, socialism, but no government. And it's like, well, then how do you regulate and control markets and distribute value without a central organization? And it really doesn't make sense until you kind of frame it like you are, where it's like, it's voluntary. You approach this voluntarily. It's like a part of your personal value system, and you express that in how you live and in the choices you make. And I always thought that was cool. It's like, yeah, if more people simply had that mentality, there would be less need for government in general. And and something Noam Chomsky said that I think is absolutely fecking brilliant, which is, he's like, listen, government, corporation, it doesn't matter. It's power. They're power structures, and they act the same way.
Yeah.
Either way, and that's how you should view them. So you would need less reliance on these power structures. You wouldn't buy bottled water anymore because you know it's ridiculous. That's a voluntary choice. The evil capitalists aren't making you buy bottled water. You know what I mean? Right. I mean, and maybe you could argue that they are, but let's not go there. You can choose to give a shit about your neighbor. You can choose to create covenants. You can choose to have a communal garden. But if you have this sort of late-stage capitalism mentality ingrained into you, you're going to be more atomized. You're not going to have a strong personal system of value. You know, you're going to have this weird Kafka-esque vision of value where you know, maybe you're a young girl and you grew up watching the Kardashians, and that's actually real to you. Imagine that.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
So I went to church this morning. Back to and I'm gonna tell these weird kind of stories because they kind of tie back to the symptoms that we're talking about, right? So I go into this church and first of all, last night, so I'm a charismatic Christian, to be clear. What that means is I believe in weird aspects of Christianity, very esoteric Christianity stuff.
Isn't that Pentecostal?
Pentecostal, speaking in tongues, prophecy, healing, not fortune telling, but like that's the easiest way to put it.
Fun
for these terms. Very esoteric, very like there is a spiritual dimension. You can tap into it and there is power there. And there's also a bad spiritual dimension and you can tap into it and there is power there. Right? So I've grown up my whole life kind of believing in all that spiritual dimension stuff. So I'm like, okay, I would like for my kids to experience some of this more spiritual components, a little bit less. The Bible says the letter kills, but the spirit brings life. I'd like to get my kids into a church where there's a little less like Bible thumping and a little bit more like flag waving and dancing.
Yeah, I always thought black churches were really cool.
They are.
You ever
really
seen the Blues
cool.
Brothers with the James Brown thing?
100%.
And I was thinking I was an atheist edgelord kid that, was into like heavier music and stuff. And I'm like, but if that was going on at church, I was a real student of the bass and I already liked playing funk. I didn't listen to much of it, but I was like, man, if that's what my church was doing, I probably would have been a Christian.
Yeah. Well, and
that would have been fun.
It is great.
It's spiritual and invigorating and not like sitting down and like.
The problem with that though is that a lot of times in that kind of thing, the theology, the Bible thumping element gets lost.
Sure.
And then you wind up with a very strange hybrid of what a thing is.
Yeah, and you get preachers kind of making shit up from the...
A lot.
Yeah.
Oh, a whole lot. Or taking things out of context is more the main issue. Because the Bible can say anything. You can make it say whatever you want it to say as long as you're willing to take it out of context.
Yeah, like statistics.
Yeah. There are lies, there are damned lies, and then there are statistics. Thank you, Mr. Benjamin Disraeli. Okay, so when I go to church this morning, I walk in and I'm like, I finally find this. I look on the internet for 45 minutes trying to find a church that says we believe in this stuff. And I look all over. I look on every single church's website in Parker. Darn. Couldn't find it. So I start my search over again. I'm like, okay, with a different set of parameters. And I'm not like saying like searching Google, like I'm talking about when I look at each individual website again, I'm going to look for the statements of belief and all that sort of stuff. Like going to get into their actual theology, which they should post on there. So I found this church. I'm like, okay, great. So I show up this morning and there's like 12 cars in the parking lot. And I'm like, oh boy, this is a really small church. And I'm like, okay. And I walk in. And the pastor looks at me, and the first thing he does is he's like, hey, man, we're a really old congregation. He basically apologizes that their church's doors are open. Like he basically says, I'm sorry for wasting your time and your Sunday morning. You could have been anywhere, but instead you're spending it with us. And for that, I am sorry.
Ugh.
That's how I started.
Imagine if that's how your dating approach was. Okay, listen.
This was totally, if Judd Apatow were to write a movie about somebody going to church, this is what their going to church experience would have been. And so finally I get through the service, I sit down with the pastor, and the first thing he says to me is, hey man, I just want to let you know, I'll be gone in the next 10 days or so. My kids actually hate it here as well. You know, the elder board here, they won't change a single thing. Right? And that was the real keys. Like there's two people on the board of this church and they won't change anything. And therein lies the problem. There is a legacy issue. You know, like the boomers control all the money in the world?
Sure.
All right. They also control all the institutions. They also control all of the Rotary Club, Elk Club, whatever things.
Yeah.
And they were so happy to be the president of the board for so many years, and then they retired, and they were like, great, now I can be the president forever. Nothing has ever been handed off. In the same way that none of the boomer wealth has ever been handed off to the millennials, none of the boomer positions have been handed off. And the boomers are like, no, this is how we do things.
Yeah.
And so also none of our social institutions have been passed on at all.
So they have cancer. They have blockages.
And this is every single church I've been to. I've tried 5 different churches, and I've like been the president of the board at my last church. Like I love to get in there. I will play on the worship team. I will preach. I will do security. Like I will make bulletins. Like I just like to get in and serve. I like being, because it's as close to tribal as I get.
Yeah.
And Brian, there isn't any institution out there that has anything for you to do, period.
I agree with that. That feels correct to me. I remember thinking that was a problem. I remember reading about, I want to say it was Denmark. And you know how they're very socialist, right? Yep. But they're not socialist. I mean, there's capitalism there, but the major elements of redistribution, social.
Sure. High taxes. I think 63% tax.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. But I remember reading about this small town there where they're like, you know, look, there's a 24/7 community center here. It's open all the time. And it's very lively. It's very active. It has all the things. And people use it. Mm-hmm. And they really cherish it. And I'm like, shit, like that might be worth half your paycheck. You know, like old people are retiring and going to teach classes there, and people are actually showing up.
Yep.
And they like it.
Well, and the gym is one of those things that's tribal enough in that you see the same people lifting at the same time. CrossFit is a really interesting kind of tribal workout situation. All this being said, it's like you've got two things that are coming at you at the same time, which is you've got the late stage capitalism of fear, entertainment, and convenience. And you think, oh God, I don't want this. I don't want this. What I really want is to be a little bit more socialist, anarchist. And I really want to go join a tribe. I'm going to go join a tribe. You want to know the weirdest thing I saw today?
What's that?
I saw a sign outside of Parker that says, this flagpole was dedicated October the 10th of 2016 by the Rotary Club of Parker, which is dedicated to eradicating polio and benefiting humanity. All right. So I didn't know that the Rotary Club existed to eradicate polio, but here.
They must be doing a great job.
All I'm going to say about the Rotary Club is damn. You fucking did it. You won. You beat polio. And now look, I don't normally drop F-bombs on the podcast. But when you make a nonprofit dedicated to the eradication of a global pandemic level disease and you win, first of all, you got to drop a mic and start a new club and get a new cause, because clearly you're a bunch of winners.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you doing now, hotshot?
What they're doing now is they're like, well, we cured polio. Let's fix global poverty. And it's like, okay, guys, look, polio was big. Not gonna lie, it was big. How about like we just move up to the next stage, like the water crisis? Because I'm sure if you can eradicate polio, you can take care of the water crisis. My point is even if you get sick and you feel sick on the inside, like you feel that oh God, like your soul is eternally Netflix scrolling.
Ugh.
I don't mean like you're actually, like your soul is doing that. Like your soul can't choose what to listen to. Your soul can't choose. Like
I experience that a lot where I'm like, I know what you're saying.
Okay, so soul Netflix scrolling is like a disgusting. You feel gross. Like
you don't feel like you're ever actually doing
You just
anything.
wish that the hailstorm would come and like knock out your electricity, and then at least you'd have a candle to light, and at least that would be something meaningful, and you might have some kind of a story to tell. Anyway, so you have the Netflix soul-crushing eternal scroll, and you're like, I want to go join a tribe. You go to join a tribe, and they're all controlled by boomers who haven't let go. They haven't passed it on, and they're all dying.
That's a big problem.
All right, so
that's really bad in Japan too, because they worship their elders, and then they never step down and let the people that are working.
So then where do you go? Well, then you go to the bar. All right. So then so the tribe would be the ideal liminal space. That's gone. All right, so now we go to the bar.
Yeah, what else do you have left aside from maybe some martial arts stuff for CrossFit?
Well, and like, okay, look, like I'm not saying it's zero.
It's not. But
it's not zero. I'm talking at a high level here.
I feel you.
Because I'm describing all the symptoms and the problems.
Totally, I got you.
And if you have this soul crushing thing, and there's no tribes that you can connect with, and even if you go to the bar, it's the problem with the bar is that there's no expectations of you, and without responsibility, you're not an initiated member.
Yeah, you're just kind of there.
Right.
Even if you do have the clout and you got the cheers thing going on, it's still...
Even if you have that, trust me, it will be there 2 years later.
Yeah, comes a time, right?
But without responsibility to the tribe, there is no initiation. That's how you know if you're an initiated individual. And I think these are all things we talked about like eons ago in the podcast.
Yep. That's why it's called Initiate Me.
That's right. And one day we'll actually get into some of this stuff here. So the issue that's really weird is if you can't have responsibility, if you've got this soul sickness, this kind of blight of the heart, and then over here, you've got a lack of tribes to join because they're all controlled by the boomer population, but there's no responsibility for you at the bar. You might as well just sit down and play some Call of Duty with your friends who are like, dude, where were you last night? We needed you for our 3-on-3.
Yeah, it's kind of the closest thing you have. Right?
It's the only thing you have.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It's a huge problem.
It's a big freaking problem.
It is a big freaking problem. So essentially, I asked this pastor guy, so we're going to be starting our Sunday night get-togethers. Probably as soon as the kids go back to school, we're starting our Sunday night church stuff.
You're doing like a Bible study group?
Yeah, we're going to do a men's group that meets on Sunday nights. It's going to be Jungian. It's going to be King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. So for those of you guys who don't know, moving on now. So that's the symptoms right now as I see it.
Okay.
And the fact that I walked in and a pastor actually said, and this was my last ditch attempt. Like I texted my dad today and I'm like, hey dad, going to church this morning. Wish me luck. Seriously, like that's not a joke. I actually texted that,
Yeah.
And the fact that the pastor basically said, not basically, he said, our church is old and I'm sorry for wasting your morning. I'm done.
There's your sign.
I'm done. I'm so done. I'm so done. So here's what's happened, guys. Over the last year, I have been studying at a pretty deep level. Let's see here. All right. So to get a little more Christian-y on you, the Bible says that when you want to overcome something, you must overcome it. The Bible says that they overcome with the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Okay. So in AA, what we say is that we overcome by, we talk about what it was like, what it's like now, and then we give our experience, strength, and hope. And typically that's revolved around some aspect of reading AA literature. So what I have found is that the best impact you can have on somebody when you're teaching is to quote a piece of canon and then talk about how that piece of canon changed your life.
Okay.
How the canon animated you. Right?
Sure.
So I've isolated the four masculine canon literary books that we will be going through.
It's borrowing from the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover.
Yeah, so by the way, it is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover with the shaman monad eye on top.
Yeah, you added a secret class.
I did add a secret class. I've taken the secret class away, and now I've just said that the shaman, the internal surrendered Wu Wei part of you, is the Eye of Horus that sits on top.
Love it.
All right. So it's Don Juan as the lover, Don Quixote as the warrior, Faust as the magician, and Satan as the king from Milton's Paradise Lost.
Wow.
These books, if you add them all together, they will give you the greatest depiction of literary King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. They're perfect. Because one of the things I think that we fail to realize when we talk about King, Warrior, Magician, Lover stuff is we fail to discuss the fact that each archetype has its own motivated by energy. Mm-hmm. So the lover is motivated by passion, creativity, art, right? The warrior is motivated by glory.
Yes. Okay.
The magician is motivated by like intelligence, deep curiosity, kind of always pushing edges.
Victory.
Well, yeah, it's more of like victory through subtlety rather than victory through glory, right? And then the king is mostly motivated by, it's a little bit less dynamic. It's safety, it's security, it's moats and castle walls and diplomacy. And the king is actually motivated by these things because it's how he maintains the structure of his universe. It's a structure maintaining role rather than a like power like dominance role. And there's a lot of different ways to maintain power because the warrior, after he wins his battle, he doesn't really care about maintaining power. Like no great warrior has ever been like, I won, and then being like, sweet, now I get 30 years of diplomacy and I get to marry off my daughters. This is amazing. Like no warrior has ever said that. Right? No magician has ever said, you know what I really want is to take over an entire country through means of manipulation and trickery because I just love them so much. Like Klaus Schwab is like the ultimate in like shisty magicianry.
Sure.
Right? And then the lover doesn't even know what tomorrow is.
No.
I mean, technically speaking, like
if you could be possessed, if you had to be possessed by one of those for the rest of your life.
The warrior.
Really? I'd go for the lover.
I would go for the lover, but...
And I know exactly why that would be terrible. Trust me. I know.
No, I definitely know enough about myself to know that I am way over possessed by the check mark, achieving, move on to the next task after I accomplish it, right. Brute force.
Of course, it must be understood you don't want to over-identify.
God, no.
Possessed with any of these things. The whole point, I'm talking to the audience here.
Okay.
Just in case they don't know this, the whole point is to integrate all of them and put them in balance and in harmony and align it to your life and your true intentions.
Right. Yes.
Not to be like, I'm a magician.
No, God, no. So the worst thing you can do is identify as one of these things. Right. So what? But
you can recognize if you have an energy imbalance, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm a little
I believe that it comes based upon based upon what you needed as a survival mechanism as a child is going to be your originating archetype. And it'll be the archetype that you originate, like all nails will look like hammers based upon the archetype that you utilize to survive as a child.
Okay. Maybe kind of like your star sign, sort of.
Yeah, similar.
Or your Enneagram number.
Yep. So everybody has it's like Settlers of Catan, like everybody has a different starting point on the map. My starting point is, it has been and will always be warrior, extrovert, that sort of thing. Now, here's what the goal is. So if I want to explain to you real quick what the goal is going to be, and this is what we're going to be moving the channel towards. I'm getting tired of bitching and moaning about late stage capitalism.
Okay.
So
that's run its course.
Well, I can't. We can talk about it, and they're interesting, but we're definitely going to get into some teaching here pretty soon.
Okay.
Because it's time. And I just realized I've read over 130 books on this topic, and I've been studying it for 4 straight years, and it's just time. Like, I have the entire chart memorized. It's just time.
Okay.
All right.
Proof. So you're qualified.
So here's what it is. So I'm now going to define in no uncertain terms what masculinity is and how it works. Just flat out. This is going to be really basic. Okay? There are 4 primary archetypes with a 5th archetype that happens at or rises up through the process of getting to know yourself. Okay? So you have your king, your warrior, your magician, and your lover. And if you imagine that like a pyramid, the 4 corners, the very top, you got this eye on the top. And this is like the little piece of God inside of you.
You mean like what's on the back of a dollar bill, man?
Yeah, like the Eye of Horus thing?
Yeah, man.
All right. So, pull out a $1 bill if you can find one, and take a look at it. All right? The goal of masculinity, and at the top there, that's your shaman, wu-wei, surrendered, self-actualized state.
It's not the Eye of Sauron.
It could be.
Continue. Sorry.
So, what you have to understand is when you approach any situation in life, the confident man never reacts to anything ever, ever. He only responds. How does he know how to respond and what energy to respond with and what words to respond with and what actions to respond with? Okay? He sits and he looks at the situation and he says, is this situation, does it need a king? Does it need safety, security, order? Does this situation need to achieve and go for glory? Does this situation need to think outside the bounds and get curious and maybe find an alternate solution? Or does this problem need to be based in being here now, lover energy? So for example, you're hanging out with your kids. They're 2 and 5. It's Saturday morning. You don't have to work. Everybody's snowed in. You summon, the eye looks down and says, which energy is needed right now? And the eye should look down at the lover energy and say, what's needed right now is Goof Town.
Sweet love.
Need to take the kids to Goofball Town and go sledding. And let the warrior sit aside. Let the king and all of his bill paying sit aside. Let the magician set aside for trying to build a 19-foot tall snowman because your kids are 2 and 5. They don't care about a 19-foot tall snowman as much as you might think that that's interesting. Your 2 and 5-year-olds don't. So what's needed in this situation is
compassion.
Yeah. So what do you do then? You individually tell your other 3 archetypes, your warrior, your king, and your magician, and you say, look, guys, you are all going to submit to the lover, and you're going to give the lover 100% of your energy so that he can be that archetype for that moment, because that is what is required. And all masculinity is having an understanding of those 4 archetypes, their shadow elements, what they're motivated by, and how to call them up and make them submit to each other so that you can go through life responding to situations as needed every fucking time. It is not hard to be a man in this world. And I think that I've come up with, like, that was like, I just cleaned that up in 5 minutes, which is relatively heroic. And it just goes to show how long I've been, because if I can pack all that into 5 minutes.
Truth shouldn't be complicated.
It's not.
It shouldn't be.
If you feel like you're a warrior and you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm a warrior sometimes and a king sometimes and a magician and a lover, or if, oh, I'm just a magician. Well, great, because your kids are going to suffer, your wife's going to suffer, you're never going to actually get anything ticked off of any sort of achievement box because you're always going to want to make something a little bit harder or a little bit more, a little bit better. I'm going to go for an FKT on God of War. Oh my God, 2 hours and 22 minutes. Oh, I got this. Like, you can't even enjoy life anymore because you're always pushing every single...
Pack it up, Gandalf. Come on.
Or like a king that's like, no, honey, you cannot spend $400 on getting your hair done because we have to have safety and security in our 401k and our children's college education funds.
Ugh.
Oh, great.
Lame.
Great.
That guy's getting cheated on.
Cool king guy. Yeah, seriously. You want to talk? Well, he's going to be Arthur. Arthur was fully cupped by Lancelot for that reason.
Oh.
Like
that's why they call him Lancelot.
Like Lancelot. Yeah, he lances a lot. I agree. Lancelot actually did that. That actually happened. He sleeps with Guinevere because Arthur can't figure it out because he's too busy being the archetype of the king while he's the king. Right? And then you wonder why you go out there and you whoop ass and you whoop ass and you whoop ass and you look back and you're like, damn, I've whooped a lot of ass. I have no money in my bank account. Yeah, it's probably because you're pure unadulterated warrior. You're good at whooping ass, but man, you can't sing for crap. Right? Or maybe you've slept with 1,000 people and you've never like had the joy of like loving kids or whatever, and you're like, oh, I can't even. I'm so sensitive. And you know, my wife and I, we had a long talk about big dick energy recently.
Yeah, hot topic.
Huh?
Hot topic these days.
Is it a hot topic these days?
Yeah.
I saw a guy when I was mountaineering and he had a shirt that says "Big Dick's back in town."
Oh God. And
I asked how many 14ers he climbed, and it was like 20. And I was like. I was finishing up 42 and 43 at the time. And he immediately like apologized for wearing the shirt because he was basically stating that he was the biggest dick on the mountain. And we were like way up high. We were like at like 12,500 feet. So we were like up high in the valley where the mountains are. And he basically apologized to me for wearing a Big Dick's Back in Town shirt because he knew he wasn't. And you can't wear that shirt if you were not. And I was like, oh, that's really funny. And we talked about it for a little bit. But my wife and I, we were talking about was women like men who are powerful and respectful, not nice. It was a very interesting distinction that she had made, that women don't like nice guys because nice guys will like sit there in the corner while they get assaulted and they'll call 911 instead of doing something about it. That's why women don't like nice guys, for the record. So, it's not. So big dick energy is confident and respectful, not confident nice. So, we are moving very quickly into what this channel is supposed to be.
Good.
Which is that more hyper-masculine... not hyper-masculine, it's just masculine. We're just going to discuss...
We're going to do the manosphere thing, but it's not going to be... It's not going to be Tate. It's not going to be...
No.
How to make lots of money, and, you know, we probably won't even use the term big dick energy ever. Probably not. I think we're going to focus more on this... How to make the archetypes work for you.
So...
You know, you hear, like, Jordan Peterson bring up Jung, and you know about all this stuff, but, like... How do you actually do it?
So,
what does it actually mean? That's what I guess that's the problem we want.
So yeah, to be clear. So let's say your garbage disposal goes out.
Okay.
Your lover energy will never fix that garbage disposal.
No, why should it?
Okay. Which the king energy will probably call somebody to come and do it. Safety, security, boundaries, walls, order. Okay? If you're me, you will warrior it. You will brute force it. You will go to Home Depot. You will not watch a YouTube video. You will not read the instructions. You will go and buy the thing, and you go wrestle with that thing until it's in. And if you're a magician, you'll probably go and... Right, so I look at...
How many masculine archetypes does it take to fix a garbage disposal?
Okay. So here's the way I look at the garbage disposal thing. Every time you encounter something that is new to you, it is a new life experience to you that requires some element of risk that is out of your comfort zone. This is the dragon of chaos rearing up its head, and we've talked about this a whole bunch of times. And if you hire somebody to tackle the dragon of chaos for you, you will learn that money is how you solve every problem.
Bringing it back to the capitalism.
So, this is why capitalism reigns supreme if you want to bring it back. Because if you have enough money, you can buy your wife anything she wants and she'll never leave. If you have enough money, you can send your kids to the best schools and they'll think that you're the best parent in the world because they got the best education.
Is that how it works?
If you have enough money,
Really?
you can buy all the blood of young college athletes you want and you can put it into your veins down in San Jose and you can live forever. And if you have enough money, well, the athletes that sell their blood, it's a $6 billion a year industry.
Yeah, I hear they like children's blood too.
Well, they do, but this is a family-friendly channel.
Oh.
Yeah, drinking children's blood, not family-friendly. Big dick energy. Family-friendly? No.
I don't think we're that family friendly.
We're not that family-friendly. But yeah, so yes. But
I've been trying to say the F word less, though.
Oh, that's good. Because I've been saying it more.
Yeah, it's okay.
I don't mind it.
There's a void. I know, you're trying to...
Is that what it is?
Maybe.
Damn.
I think this is a good time to wrap up.
It is a good time. It is a good time to wrap up. So
we could probably do this for 4 more hours.
We could.
We should probably...
At the end of the day, you got your archetypes, having them submit to one another, because you have to figure out which archetype is supposed to ride that dragon. The last thing you want is your king energy riding that lover energy when your wife's like, come make love to me. She wants Arthur to like stay downstairs, right? And she wants Conan the Barbarian or Don Juan to come upstairs, right? She definitely doesn't want like, Mark Zuckerberg's magicianry to like come up the stairs. Yeah, right. So understanding that the masculine archetypes are what they are as dragons of chaos present themselves to you, and one of your biggest hurdles as a man in the modern era is to not outsource and not pay for and not think of money as a way to solve your dragon riding crisis. That is masculinity.
And I would also add not being, and this is what we hate about the manosphere, not being two-dimensional. Not being like, the manosphere is probably going to tell you, warrior, 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 maybe a little magician here and there, and that's really all they have for you. Very two-dimensional. We don't want that.
It's very two-dimensional. No. We are that.
We
are five-dimensional.
The feminists would be correct in
that is toxic.
A lot of this stuff.
That is toxic.
Yeah. Let's call toxic masculinity being a two-dimensional man. I never liked that either.
Honestly, toxic masculinity is just men who are addicted to responding to or addicted to reacting to things instead of responding.
Yeah, they're immature.
Any man that reacts, and we'll end this with an actual existential quote from an actual existentialist.
Oh, look at us.
Viktor Frankl said that the space or silence you can give between an action and a response is your level of dignity for that situation or that soul. If you have an infinite amount of time, like you could never react. But that space and reaction, if you react in 2 seconds, you have no dignity or love for that person. If you've got 10 minutes, if you've got 10 hours. And I like Frankel's statement in that. It's a great way for you to be able to gauge for yourself how much dignity you have for other people. Just watch your reaction times.
That's great.
I know. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Frankel. That's from the Unconscious God. My name is Drew.
I'm Brian.
And we are the Men Who Stare at Cups live from Phoenix Ridge Studios.